Welcome to the first episode of This Week with Carolina Commits, the show where we break down the top performances of key UNC targets and commits. I'm THL staff writer Brandon Peay. Joining me today is publisher of NC Preps and the queen of football recruiting in the state of North Carolina, Miss Deana King. How are you doing today, Deana?
Doing really great. The season started off last weekend, in North Carolina especially. We had games for three days, Thursday through Saturday. So, a lot of the other kids, I think around 18, 19 of the commits were in action this week. Florida kids that have committed, they start this week. New Jersey starts, I think, this week as well. So, really successful weekend for the North Carolina commits. As a group, they went 14-4. Of course, a couple of those play on the same team. Jaden Patterson and Aiden Banfield, they play for Mill Creek. So, they got the win. But something kind of really cool was four of those commits played in NFL stadiums this week. Jordan Shipp at Providence Day. They played in a Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte, home of the Carolina Panthers. Banfield and Patterson played in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, the home of the Falcons, in a game. And then they had a few games in the Mercedes-Benz, as Ashton Woods, also a commit out of the Atlanta area. His team also played in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Falcons. So kind of neat for high school kids to play in those big stadiums.
Yeah, Dean, as you said, early August is usually a pretty exciting time because it's the start of the high school football season, and many of the UNC commits were in action. And Deana, the first UNC commit that I want to talk about today that on our standout list is Curtis Simpson, a 3-star defensive end from Kings Mountain. I think North Carolina is going to have him at that jack position. That's what he said when I talked to him at a camp. So, and I did get to see him at a camp, but there was no pads on in that camp. So how did Curtis look first week of pads?
With my site, I get a lot of comments, and I saw comments that whole Friday night like, we can't block Curtis Simpson, So big night, 5 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 2 quarterback hurries, and a 34-17 win over Shelby. That was a big rivalry game there in Cleveland County. And like I said, with the comments that I've heard all weekend, that Curtis really was a beast on the end, and Shelby had a hard time blocking him.
Oh yeah.
So he made the number 5 of our top performances. Of course, we're going to count down to the best one. So go ahead and proceed.
All right, Deana, and that's a good point. When I got to see Curtis at the camp, he was very unblockable. But for the next prospect on this list, we're going to stay on the defensive side of the ball. We're going to talk about 6'2", 215 linebacker, 215-pound linebacker, Cruz Law, a 3-star linebacker from Christ Presbyterian, Nashville, Tennessee. So what did you think about his performance this week?
Linebackers, if they lead you in tackles, they're doing a good job. He made the list. Had 8 tackles in a big win over Brentwood, a rival there. Carolina are wanting more physical linebackers, and Cruz Law is that. He is a tough kid there in the middle of defense, and had a great game to start the season off.
Yeah, and Deana, the one thing I actually do like about this show is that we actually get a chance to evaluate the on-field production of these kids. So, because a lot of people will get caught up on the stars and the rankings, but now we can actually see the production that they're putting out on the field, and you can see why the UNC coaching staff wanted to recruit some of these kids. And moving on to the next player, we have a player that actually, he's going to come into UNC as a defensive back, but he has the ability to play both ways. I'm talking about Malcolm Ziegler, a defensive back out of Fuquay-Varina, a 3-star defensive back. What kind of performance did he have this week, Deana?
Oh, Malcolm just does everything for the Bengals. I mean, he ran the ball. He had over 100 yards, probably pushing about 150 because he had two really long touchdown runs for Fuquay Varina. Coach Brown, he loves athletic kids. And this dude, he does everything for Fuquay Varina. They came up on the short end of the game. They lost 17-14 to Middle Creek, but Malcolm, he showed what type of athlete he is by, doing what he does and being the guy there at that high school. So looking forward to seeing what he does all year. I mean, he's a standout on both sides of the ball.
Yeah. The playmaker is what we like to call him, Deana. And I think he's also on special teams for them also. That might be a role that he can play for UNC when he gets there. Bryce Beaker, the only 2025 prospect on this list, quarterback, signal caller, the most important position on the field. He made the list, had a big performance for East Forsyth this weekend. Can you just talk about his performance?
20 of 27 passing, 273 yards with a touchdown. And he also ran for a touchdown, showing his versatility, being a threat to run the ball. East Forsyth, one of the top teams in the state this year, won big over Heritage, 49-7. So, like you said, Bryce, he is the only commit for the Tar Heels in the class of 25, and he's a big one, being a quarterback. You want your quarterback to be the main speaker and the lead recruiter and everything. And he started off his season really well, and 20-27 is pretty good accuracy. And he, like I said, he plays on a very talented team.
Speaking of talented teams, Deana, Providence Day out of North Carolina played in Panther Stadium, like you mentioned earlier, against Northwestern out of Rock Hill, I believe. One of the top teams in South Carolina. It was actually turned out to be a very close game at the end. UNC commit Jordan Shipp won MVP of the game. What did you see from his performance this weekend?
Wow. It's just one of those performances that you're like, you just shake your head. I mean, 13 receptions, over 200 some yards, 2 touchdowns, in helping Providence Day 42-35 over Northwestern, one of the top teams in South Carolina at Bank of America Stadium. We can talk all day. We can talk all day about Providence Day and the talent that Coach Chad Greer has there, loaded with 4 and got 5 stars in David Sanders, who's the top offensive lineman in the country in 2025. Leo Delaney, a 26 that's really elite too. And then let's not forget, Jaden Davis and, going to Michigan. So Jordan Shipp, he is the top performer from all the Carolina commits this week. I mean, just outstanding. His stock is going up. Coach Brown and Coach Galloway and that staff, they're going to, if he keeps doing performances like that, there's going to be – the recruiting game is not over. So they got to work extra hard to make sure Jordan stays, totally committed to Carolina, because if he's has games like that, you don't know what's going to happen in the recruiting game. So that's my top 5 kids, players, performances. Like I said, next week we should have even more. I think everybody should be starting their season. So it's going to be a fun segment to do with you, Brandon.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Well, Deana, I think that's a perfect place to stop for TarHeelIllustrated.com.
No, we got to do the top games. Oh, we got to do the top games. Yeah.
Versus
upcoming game.
You're right. You're right. That'll be the last part of it.
I know. We get excited talking about all these performances, but we got some big games this week involving.
I jumped the gun. So, Deana, tell us about the top games that UNC commits.
Okay, well, everybody's talking about Buford, Georgia, one of the top programs in the country,
Yeah.
loaded with 4 and 5 stars. I mean, they have Tyshawn White, who UNC commit, plays DB, plays a little bit of wide receiver, caught a touchdown pass last week. They play at Mallard Creek in Charlotte. So, it's going to be a tough ticket. Talked to someone from Mallard Creek this morning, said Buford sold out their allotment of tickets in 5 minutes, bringing 8 buses up from Georgia. Big time atmosphere. You're going to be there. You're going to see Tyshawn White in person, get some feedback, interviews with him, some photos. So that's a big game. Also, a big game in North Carolina is a rivalry game, and I go back to Cleveland County. Javaris Green, who committed to North Carolina last Friday, and backed that commitment up with a huge performance with his Crest Chargers pulling off a major win over Gaffney, South Carolina, who was at that time ranked number 2 in South Carolina. They play another Cleveland County rivalry game against Burns, and Burns is one of the top teams in 2A this year in North Carolina. In the last game, kind of a ironic, funny type game. Cardinal Gibbons in Florida, Michael Merdinger, the quarterback, 2024 quarterback, opens up his 2024 season against Cardinal Gibbons of North Carolina. The Crusaders travel from Raleigh down to Fort Lauderdale in a game that, a lot of announcers will have to probably use mascots instead of their team names. Yeah. So another big week in football for North Carolina commitments.
Yeah, for sure. Cardinal Gibbons is always one of the top teams in North Carolina. So North Carolina fans will get a chance to really see Michael Merdinger go against some quality competition. But Deana, now I think that is officially a good place to stop. For Tar Heel Illustrated, I'm Brandon Peay. She's been Deana King. Thank you for watching.